The largest dance music festival in North America is a hell of an experience.
Well, welcome to Electric Daisy Carnival.
Are filming my butt? Why not?
The Electric Daisy Carnival is intricately designed to be the ultimate playground for all kinds of ravers that want to enter a new stimulating reality. With its long track record, it has also witnessed many unique moments that have been inscribed in history books. But besides being one of the most ambitious dance events out there, it also remains as one of the most controversial.
EDC is way better than Porcelain. For real, Porcelain.
Its dominance, though, did not come easily. Power plays hidden as health and safety concerns not only threatened the survival of EDC, but that of the entire rave scene in the US, to the point where the whole industry was on the brink of death. Twice. While the head of EDC started off as a raver himself, his growth tactics and partnerships alienated him from his underground beginnings. Some began to see him as a product of greed and corporatization, while others considered him to be the torchbearer of the entire dance community. Regardless of whose side you're on, the rave revolution in America is in part due to this massive festival and the people behind it. But how exactly did EDC influence rave culture across the country? And why, despite everything, does the festival keep breaking records? This is the full story behind Electric Daisy Carnival. The early 90s were characterized by disruptive war and an unforgiving recession. But with the changing world order and creative new technology, the outlook on life was shifting in tone. Sounds handed off from Chicago and Detroit began picking up speed, and new music styles also came to light. In the UK, the second summer of love was in full force, with an atmosphere marked by acid house and a psychedelic nostalgia of the 1960s. One of its witnesses was Stephen Hapfer, an American art student in London who embraced the British subculture. When he went back to his home base of Los Angeles, he decided to import the scene and began to organize parties at secret locations, all under the name of Mr. Kool-Aid. Yet the raves began incorporating their own local juice, creating a fresh and innovative atmosphere with a unique series of commandments.
A lot of dust, a lot of parking problems, but there were so many people with a good vibe here that made up for it all.
Well, I personally had a great time. You threw a great party.
The values of peace, love, unity, and respect connected the community in a way that no other environment could. Fleur reeled in all types of individuals, especially those who felt out of place in their regular lives. These parties were their home, and boy, was their style out of this world.
Pay tribute and success to mankind. The all-new Mars FM, this station that tells the truth.
There's lots of really good energy.
Everybody's so friendly. It's cool, man.
The music is excellent.
Kids just want to be nice to everybody and just want to love everybody, you know, and that's kind of what we're trying to capture.
Those who gave out homemade Pony Beats bracelets became known as Candy Kids, and their exchanges became the most supreme way of embodying Fleur. One of the most peculiar ravers in the scene was a 17-year-old kid named Pasquale Rotella, who used to hand out lollipops to everyone he came across. Not only was he younger than most, he brought in an energy that fired up the entire dance floor. But back in the real world, he wasn't the most liked. As a child of poor Italian immigrant parents, he constantly got teased in school. During lunchtime, when everyone got their perfectly cut peanut butter and jelly sandwich, he would open up his meatballs wrapped in plain tinfoil. Still, he knew deep down that his social circle was hiding somewhere else and began to try his luck by wandering the streets of Venice Beach.
You're going to Exodus, and you will see the flashing lights in the window of Exodus, Massachusetts.
Pasquale's new eclectic friends eventually introduced him to some unconventional parties that they called raves. On one of his outings, he heard about an event that Mr. Kool-Aid and his partner Destructo were organizing on a dairy farm for about 3,000 attendees. It was called Magical Mickey's Electric Daisy Carnival and included a whole functioning Ferris wheel, concessions, decorations, and even bouncy castles. The rave blew everyone's mind. It was a full-on amusement park for adults. The concept was so out there that people wouldn't stop talking about the experience days after, becoming the most memorable event of 1991. These new types of raves tickled Pasquale's funny bone. To be a part of that magic, he would have to immerse himself in the trade, so he quickly decided to step in as a promoter and hand out flyers for his friends' events. The following year, tickets for the second iteration of the Electric Daisy Carnival sold out in a matter of days. While risky, the warehouse parties were reaching a point of being financially rewarding, which led to a serious boost in production efforts. The breakthrough, though, didn't just attract more attendees, it also caught the attention of complete outsiders.
It's a Friday night in San Diego, just about midnight. For most people, their evening is winding down. But I'm on my way to a party that hasn't even begun yet, at a location that I don't even know yet.
Raves then began making the news for all the wrong reasons.
Is here this morning to tell us about a new phenomenon on the popular culture scene. Wow.
Oh,
good morning,
You
Jill.
will be saying wow. Hi, Katie. Okay, it first started in London, hit LA, and now this underground explosion is raging across the country. It's called raving, the all-night dance party for the young and the restless.
How old are you? I'm 14.
The media was trying to sensationalize the entire scene.
So I would like you to meet some of the wildest, freakiest characters that you have ever laid your eyes on. Come on now, kids. Tiny is just 15 years old?
Yeah.
A transsexual.
Raving, it's just like, it's just another definition for partying and having fun until dawn or until the next day.
It's Saturday night, and do you know where your kids are? Possible. They're among the tens of thousands of Southern California kids being seduced by the psychedelic and often illegal party scene of the underground, called Raves, where 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 kids cram into dilapidated warehouses, where speakers are like altars of music, worshipped by kids in a cult-like fashion, driven by the rave's favorite drugs, the hallucinatory ecstasy.
Maybe that's why it's been called the hug drug. It's been illegal since 1985, but that doesn't seem to matter to ravers. Just ask my first guests, Odie, Nye, and Spike.
What used to be a relatively unknown community quickly rose to become a national topic.
Well, until now, few adults have seen what goes on at a rave, and the reasons will become apparent. Behind closed doors, there are no rules, no curfew, but there is the opportunity for serious trouble. Lynchers report as a warning for parents and for teenagers who've been there.
The public soon turned against it, and law enforcement was forced to shut down any type of operations mid-rave. Meanwhile, gangsters in Southern California were also invading the scene, transforming the parties into dense and violent spaces. But then, the first ever rave organized in an actual theme park only complicated things for the community.
He'll also be at Rave America happening this Thursday, New Year's Eve at Knott's Berry Farm. It's going to be the biggest event to hit LA. Over 15,000 people will be there.
Make sure you tell them about the rides. All the rides are going to be open too, man. The whole park. I mean, this thing is just, it's massive. We've been working on this for like 2 years now, and I can't believe it came together.
Okay.
As people lined up outside, inefficient processing times produced a bottleneck that increased wait times and irritated many attendees. On top of that, non-ticket holders also showed up and began to climb the park's fences as a way of sneaking into the K-Rave. With increasing frustration, the ones waiting outside managed to burst open the park's gates and rushed inside frantically. The park, suddenly having lost total control, was forced to cut off its power. Ultimately, backups were also needed and the police were called in to escort attendees out of the park. While historic, the event tainted the rave boom. It produced a new hypersensitive landscape where most promoters began to fear the possibility of the raves imploding in the same way.
This morning, the Parthenon Club is closed and the rave party is over.
Pasquale knew that if nobody stepped up, it might as well be the end of raves. So he took matters into his own hands. His first set of parties were named Insomniac, and to make them as accessible as possible, he would only charge $5 per ticket. Every Friday, Insomniac would be held at a new secret location provided by his real estate buddies. They gave him keys to empty buildings as they became available, making him invisible to those that could track him down, at least for most of the time. Yet not long after, his parties were reaching hundreds of attendees every week thanks to his charisma and solid networking skills. Whenever a friend asked him to get in for free, he would appoint them as volunteers to help out with the events, easing his workload each time. But the raves began to grow faster before any amount of delegation could keep up, taking a huge toll on Pasquale. And after a year in business, he decided to call it quits. Those closest to him didn't think that it was the best of decisions, so they pressured him to reconsider. Without him, the scene would practically disappear. The act of giving up would be a disservice to him and those who needed it the most. The energy and spark of the dance floor had to be brought back, and after all, he knew darn well how to throw a good party. Just as many promoters started leaving the scene, Pasquale's newfound fire pushed him to go harder than ever. In 1995, Mr. Kool-Aid and Destructo were on their way to throwing their very last EDC, but Philip Blaine, Pasquale's new partner, saw opportunity in the dying brand. He contacted the duo and arranged the licensing for Electric Daisy Carnival to be used by Insomniac going forward. If Pasquale was going to resuscitate what was lost, he didn't just have to execute well, he also had to host more parties. In only a couple of years, Insomniac became the most well-known rave collective in Southern California.
Thanks for calling Nocturnal Wonderland. We are really excited about you being a part of this event. Directions will be posted tomorrow afternoon on these voicemails. Come in peace or don't come at all.
By the late 90s, rave culture was getting back on track. Internet forums were becoming popular, allowing ravers to cross state lines for the boldest and shiniest events. New music also began to pick up speed, accelerated by peer-to-peer music sharing platforms that took ravers by storm. Names like The Prodigy, Fatboy Slim, and the Chemical Brothers were enchanting British ears, while their live electronica sets began to sell out like hotcakes. In places where disc jockeys were normally hidden, they could now be seen as one of the main attractions.
We've got palm trees, the ocean, a swimming pool, and the hottest dancers on the West Coast.
Channels like MTV were also betting on the new sounds, while major record labels were designating the genre as the next big thing. With this new hype, Pasquale decided it was the right time to host his first ever Electric Daisy Carnival in 1997. The Shrine Auditorium broke the curse by becoming the first legitimate venue since the K-Rave, with 5,000 people raving there until dawn. For $20, ravers didn't just encounter rave music, but had access to new experiences like professional performers, lasers, and body painting, all without forgetting the trademark carnival rides. The EDC brand had made a strong comeback, completely surpassing its predecessors. And the scene itself was also seeing multiple signs of improvements. New open-air formats allowed people to rave the mat away in a safer and legal environment while avoiding heat exhaustion. The growing demand led to a rise in party options, toughening competition and forcing promoters to up their game. Looking to keep ravers at his parties, Pasquale explored possible alliances and found partnership with his long-term collaborator, Disco Donnie. But one event in particular would turn back the clock for the raving community. The new millennium did come in blazing hot. Every weekend, more and more ravers were eager to show their dance moves, and despite the bigger turnouts, it was still pretty much an underground wonderland. However, one unaware event at the State Palace Theater in New Orleans quickly became a wake-up call for all ravers and promoters alike. At around 9 p.m., government agents stormed Disco Donnie's rave with a specific goal of finding illegal substances and activities. They scanned the entire perimeter and even opened the back of sound systems to see if anything was concealed. But after a couple of hours, the only evidence they found was one small joint that a bartender had on him. For good measure, they did take some files, glow sticks, and several bottles of water, because according to them, all of those things were full-on evidence of drug use. When the police left at around 1 a.m., Donnie snuck out of his hiding place and decided to continue with the rave until the early morning hours. He was used to dealing with the authorities, but this time was different.
Greg McDonald coordinates undercover officers at Raves, and several people here are buying and selling drugs.
Turns out, undercover agents had been frequenting his raves months before the intervention for allegedly violating the crack house statute, a law from the 80s that criminalized anyone who organized parties where drugs were sold and consumed. To the Drug Enforcement Administration, raves were a hotspot for drug abuse, and Disco Donnie was at the crossroads of it all. For them, he was the apex drug dealer.
The State Palace Theater is open for business. Another rave is scheduled for next week. Police say they'll be there as well.
With such extensive news coverage, the case quickly escalated to Capitol Hill. Then Senator Joe Biden, one of the most vocal anti-rave politicians, insisted that there was a common thread between raves and drug overdoses.
Stiff criminal penalties for anyone who held a rave. The promoter, the guy who owned the building. I would put the son of a gun in jail. I would change the law. I'm the guy who authored the crack house legislation. We can use the crack house legislation. Tear down these buildings. There's no doubt about where these raves are. In the middle of the desert. Arrest the promoter.
He came up with a political strategy that was later baptized as the Rave Act. It would explicitly include the drug ecstasy. The actual proposal didn't pass until 2 years later, when it was sneakily inserted into another unknowing bill. just a couple of days before the floor discussed it. With barely any attention, it was signed into law. The legislation itself produced big ripple effects, putting all promoters in a tough situation. If evidence of drug consumption was found at the raves, they could face $250,000 in fines, and possibly up to 20 years of jail time. Some items were even officially listed as actual proof of drug use.
There are very specific paraphernalia-oriented indicators that will tell you if someone is part of the rave culture.
The rave flyers that were actually in the car, a lot of times they will have old rave flyers strewn throughout the car, or ones that they get at the rave they went to.
Clothing, glow sticks, surgical masks, colorful jewelry, and pacifiers are just a few of the things you want to look for. You might smell menthol or Vicks Vapor Rub on the person or in the car.
Other features like chill-out rooms where ravers would go to cool off were also targeted. To minimize the threat, many promoters began following the new guidelines, but that path only made the scene more vulnerable. Because of the changes, raver attendance began to drop, and the events were forced to downsize across the board. Seeing the chaos, Pasquale decided to help out with the resistance in his own unique way. Just like he did in Los Angeles, he would bring back raving culture to one of the hardest hit areas by the government crackdown. Austin, with raves now few and far between, was chosen as a new host of the first ever EDC to cross state lines, making it a battleground for the advancement of plur. The limitations on the industry and the extensive scapegoating didn't really seem to matter to Pasquale. He was completely locked in. Across the pond, a movement called trance was having a golden moment with its new superstar DJs drawing serious crowds. Pasquale thought it would only be a matter of time before that type of music reached American shores, so he set out to secure a larger place for EDC. The best contender was the NOS Center in San Bernardino, a venue that was already home to his Nocturnal Wonderland franchise. This time though, the Massive would be more experimental, featuring rock and hip-hop just so that he could attract new people and secure much-needed ticket sales. Also, other subtle changes were helping to get things back on their feet.
His leading researchers into the effects of the drug ecstasy has admitted a major flaw in his research. Dr. George Riccardi of Johns Hopkins University has retracted a study published last year which claimed that a single night of using ecstasy can cause serious brain damage and even Parkinson's disease. Dr. Riccardi admitted he mistakenly gave methamphetamine, a far more toxic substance than ecstasy, to the monkeys he used in the study.
The retracted article became a symbolic win as it proved outsiders that the community was often drowned in fake news. And with organizers now relabeling raves as dance festivals, people's perception of the scene started to shift into a more positive light. The group effort, even though small, started to look promising. At the half of the 2000s, Pasquale's predictions were becoming true. When the Grammys unveiled their new electronic and dance album category, things started to get really crazy. Dance music started being picked up by major record labels, with many pop artists wanting in on the fun and putting their own spin on it. But one event in particular left everyone speechless. Daft Punk's Coachella performance automatically raised the bar for the entire dance industry. Surely, something would come out of the entrancing sea of light and sound that ravers had now witnessed. If there was one thing that the streets of Venice had taught Pasquale, it was that opportunities do not come very often. New interest meant new money. By identifying brands that wanted to dip their toes into the growing industry, he was able to land his first ever sponsorship. At the time, he was still driving a beat-up car and living in a tiny apartment, but the money that came in would go directly to helping EDC. In 2006, he spent $5,000 so that a helicopter could drop fresh-cut daisies from the air, a never-before-seen sight that delighted many attendees.
Oh shit! It's dropping daisies! Catch it!
It was just about creating the greatest rave on earth.
Insomniac presents the 10th annual Electric Daisy Carnival, 5 massive stages featuring some of the biggest names in electronic music.
With time, other players also began to see the industry's potential. One early visionary was Todd DiStefano, the events manager of the LA Memorial Coliseum that was used for the 1932 and 1984 Olympics. He contacted Pasquale to persuade him to bring EDC to the public venue. At first, it seemed like good business. The combination of immersive acts, a historic venue, and an impressive lineup of talent quickly pushed the festival to become the hottest dance music event in the country. It didn't take long until Electric Daisy Carnival became synonymous with the LA Coliseum, accounting for almost 1/3 of its yearly revenue. Slowly, a new generation of ravers also started coming in, curious about what all the fuss was about. But the situation looked a little different a few hundred miles east, where the most famous desert city in the world was struggling to make money. The 2008 financial crisis had dramatically reduced people's spending power, and gambling was at an all-time low, putting Las Vegas in a very tough situation. Hoteliers needed to find quick alternatives to substitute their losses. The Palms Casino Resort was the first to experiment by trying out an electronic music residency with Paul Oakenfold at the helm. In only a few weeks, the nightclub experience was already reaching maximum capacity, confirming that people were more willing to spend a couple $100s getting drunk and listening to music. Soon after, the new money-making model began to spread like wildfire across the strip. But when the Hawkison group from Abu Dhabi arrived in Las Vegas, things just got out of control. Hawkison started sending out pitch decks to the top DJs with very little consideration as they already had ties with other hotels. Their offers included chauffeured limousines, private jets, lavish two-story suites with a butler, and of course, tens of millions of dollars. Just like in Europe, America was starting to get its own hyped-up version of the Superstar DJ. And with Pasquale directing the EDM event of the year, he was able to book all of them with ease. Expansion continued as he turned EDC into a 2-day event and launched new satellite festivals in Colorado, Puerto Rico, and Dallas. But 2010 was the real pinnacle of it all. Insomniac was named as one of the country's most innovative music companies, and EDC was able to welcome over 185,000 people with a revenue of $40 million, including a much more lavish production. After an impressive first day, ravers came in on Saturday with excitement and pure ecstasy.
Am I too nerdy to get inside?
No, you're sexy, baby.
I am?
But one issue would turn out to be one of the darkest incidents in EDC history. Before ravers could reach the kinetic field main stage, they had to wait in a narrow hallway and check in with security. Similar to the K-Rave, people started to cram up, resulting in a huge line. VIPs were able to go in and out of the area as they pleased, but for general admission, they needed to go through the process again, so they decided to never leave the main stage. To make matters worse, kinetic field had no designated porta potties or water stations in the area. With no end in sight, some ravers got so desperate that they decided to take action.
Oh shit! Oh, no, Whoa! Your dog is crazy! Your dog is crazy!
Get the fuck on you
Everybody out there who's motherfucking acting stupid, I don't care how far you are in the back, you jumping over the fence, respect the party people! Respect the party people!
Yo, the rider.
Did you see that?
Oh my god. Hey, do that. I'll do the head, you do that.
I'm a motherfucking niggas out there. Y'all motherfuckers sound like my motherfucking ass, huh?
Los Angeles, stop the fence jumping. You're gonna hurt yourselves. The party will be stopped. Stop now. For all these people who came here in the name of love and light.
Okay, motherfuckers. We're looking at everybody jumping over the motherfucking fences. I don't want to see no motherfucking more of this bullshit because Layback Luke is trying to take you over the fucking top.
At around sunset, after injuries and confusion, most people had already crossed over to Kinetic Field, and the chaos finally began to dwindle. The evening was able to continue as scheduled. But just when it seemed like the turmoil had been cleared, the reported passing of a 15-year-old only made things more difficult.
Large gathering of people, now you're bound to have some problems.
A 15-year-old girl has died of a suspected drug overdose.
She's been hospitalized after a suspected drug overdose.
15-year-old girl died of a suspected drug overdose.
Her family, a local family, made the decision sometime between 5 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. to take her off life support.
I think this is just a catastrophe waiting to happen. Anywhere from alcohol to methamphetamine to cocaine to MDMA to PCP. Something needs to be done to stop that availability.
Insomniac Events hasn't responded to interview requests, just releasing this statement.
15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds are getting in, they're drinking, they're using drugs, and the county knows it's happening, and yet they keep approving it. It's just, something doesn't feel right.
The teen's death puts music festivals like this one in the hot seat, and the drug ecstasy in the spotlight.
Like a flashback from the past, the dangerous rave narrative was back. The Coliseum's committee was quick to act and paused all subsequent dance festivals for the rest of the year. And just a few months later, state politicians proposed a bill that would ban raves in the entire state of California. Pasquale needed to take action if he wanted to save his rave. He found some allies within the Coliseum's board, like a former LAPD chief who argued that raves were no different from an entertainment or sports event. His careful tactics were able to cool things down, but an early 2011 council session stopped the entire momentum. It was revealed that a public employee had been pocketing money for each rave held at the stadium. Di Stefano, the guy who invited Pasquale to host EDC at the venue, had been diverting some of the funds and paying himself through his side companies. With the case now revealing potential bribery and embezzlement, the little hope that was left to host EDC at the Coliseum had collapsed. And with the start of the summer just around the corner, Pasquale skeptically turned to a place where partying wasn't seen as ungodly. Sin City already had an established EDM scene and didn't hesitate to roll out the red carpet while giving Pasquale anything he wanted. They were serious with their promise. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. To avoid falling into the same hole, he made major updates like increasing the minimum age to 18, refining security, hiring dozens of ER doctors, and setting up free water stations. An industry first, the $1 million improvements now had to serve all the 230,000 souls that were expected to arrive. The EDM capital of the world was not going to rest, and the revolution was far from over. On June 24th, the Las Vegas Motor Speedway opened for business for a full 3 days of electronic dance music. For those who said that the scene was going through a transformation, that was a mere understatement. It was more of a full-fledged music tsunami. New artists began to emerge out of thin air, collaborating with singers that nobody had heard of. And the dance floor also started showing signs of change. Ravers began wearing more in-your-face outfits that for some looked like they belonged more on a Halloween night. And others started going in the opposite direction by barely wearing anything. The rise of social media also became ingrained in the scene as people now began to feel encouraged to share their life online. The flashiest sets would also get rewarded with the most attention, and likely the most money. It was a double-edged sword for musicians. Their chances of being discovered were higher than ever, but they now had to deliver a visually appealing and charismatic way of playing a set. Those who could afford it added more visuals, fireworks, lasers, and dancers. They were now entertainers.
Say my name.
They're trying to cut my shit, but this is California.
Walter White above and beyond.
A one point, some of the tunes started sounding very similar, with music producers using the same formulaic approach to make a hit song. One single song could also be heard at least a dozen times by different sets in one night.
And ravers will arrive in the valley this week because it's EDC time.
It'll be the hottest ticket in town in more ways than one.
Probably the most sober person in the crowd right now.
But the new portrayal encouraged media and law enforcement to soften their tone, and this time it felt like they too were closeted ravers. As the cash flowed in, Pasquale was able to focus on welcoming a more diverse set of ravers to his EDC empire. By adding new stages tailored to up-and-coming subgenres, househeads started bumping elbows with dubstep supporters and techno fans with hardstyle enthusiasts. Internationally, he also exported EDC's presence to places like Mexico City, Sao Paulo, and Tokyo. The growth happened so quickly that one year Pasquale saw himself organizing 6 EDCs at the same time. Money was now the least of his concerns. He sold half of his company to Live Nation, a move that made him a multi-millionaire overnight, all without losing his rights as the head of Insomniac. And on the personal side, his life started becoming more public when he got engaged at EDC with former playmate Holly Madison. But after being in the limelight for a handful of years and feeling like he was on top of the world, the honeymoon phase came to a close. 5 years and 2 kids later, Holly and Pasquale decided to part ways, and not long after, an old collaborator reappeared. Destructo began to claim that the Electric Daisy Carnival IP was still his, but with the ownership transfer having happened 20 years back, the accusation had no legal basis, and the case was dismissed. On the ground, the 2019 edition of EDC was also showing some signs of fatigue and burnout. During the second night, an announcement left people frustrated and perplexed.
Due to high winds, we need to evacuate the venue. Please walk calmly to the nearest exit. Please find shelter in your car or any available indoor space. Due to high winds, please walk calmly to the nearest exit. The event staff will guide you. Please find shelter in your car.
High winds and a lot of confusion. Organizers of EDC scrambling to explain why they backtracked an evacuation of the massive festival.
Nina, social media has been on fire today. People blasting the EDC for sending them home early while most of the festival rolled on.
EDC reps explaining the venue wasn't closed, just some stages not rated for high winds.
Independent of the hurdles, Pasquale was already working on the next EDC for it to be the most ambitious and craziest edition yet. On the last weekend of February, Mexico hosted its 3-day events with record-breaking numbers and electrified crowds. But with a new situation unfolding, things were about to come to a grinding halt just a couple of weeks after. And with 2 more months left to go, canceling EDC seemed extremely premature.
The Electric Daisy Carnival said today it is moving ahead as planned. The event is set for May 15th through the 17th at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
The announcement gave some breathing room to the Insomniac team and its vendors, but by the end of the summer, it was clear that EDC 2020 was not going to materialize at all.
The report says the Dance Music Festival would instead happen October 2nd through the 4th, and an official announcement is expected soon.
And the band-aid solution was to go online. A new stream called the Virtual Raveathon took its place, trying to bring raves to people's homes.
Raveathon. I have a very special artist here with us. Welcome, Dombreski.
Some sets got decent views, but it sure did not replace the feeling of listening to a live act and sharing the dance floor with other ravers. Itching to get back to work, Pasquale started strategizing to make Las Vegas happen again. After all, tickets were already sold out for the 25th anniversary. But timing was still not on his side. Only a couple of weeks out, Clark County passed a new requirement.
Bars and nightclubs like Stonia's aren't allowed to have their dance floors open, and that will only be allowed to change when 60% Clark County residents get the vaccine.
The vaccination rate was still less than half, so continuing with the May dates was a total gamble. It somehow felt like the world was plotting against them, as announcing an EDC postponement for a 3rd time was simply too much. But giving up was definitely not on the agenda. Then finally, when health concerns started clearing up, the Speedway was able to open its doors again in October 2021 after 2.5 years of hiatus. Besides the cooler weather and requiring vaccination proof or a negative COVID test, it felt like things were somewhat coming back to normal. Many DJs were getting their first gigs since lockdown, and ravers were feeling the music again. With open doors, creativity reignited. After years of secretly working away with an idea, raving would also be taking off the ground at last. EDC, an entire ship dedicated to partying, took ravers on a full-blown musical journey to tropical destinations. And inland, a hotel next to the flagship event made raving accessible 24/7 to all guests as well, immersing them in live events and happy hours. Yet, outside of Pasquale's push for new experiences, the industry struggled to make a strong comeback like it had done years before. A fourth wave of fentanyl struck particularly hard on the scene, penetrating the goodies of many ravers and causing several overdoses across the US. At the same time, pickpockets increased their stealthy operations at many EDM events, taking hundreds of devices every night. The overall experience of going to EDC was now worlds apart from what it used to be. It's like none of its underground mantra was left. The new partygoers haven't shown interest in taking care of each other or knowing anything about those raving principles.
Guys, we're not here to fight. We're here to spend an amazing time with one another. Let's please not fight. There's enough fighting going on. Let's just have a fucking good time, alright?
To them, it's just about hooking up and uploading their flashy night out. And Insomniac, in an unprecedented move, considered trademarking Plur for its new clothing line, something that would have never been accepted in the original rave scene. But 2023 was a witness to considerable milestones in dance music. Out of all genres, it became the most popular type of music, and tech house was crowned as the most streamed. Over the years, the dance music scene has gone through several good and bad cycles, and Pasquale has been able to remain as one of its longest players. While some can argue that he is now estranged from his underground past, his body of work still inspires rave promoters to this day. It doesn't really matter what you throw at him, be it bad press or hefty lawsuits. The king of raves will find a way around it. The dance community is what ignites him, and frankly, it would be hard to imagine a rave scene without him. When it comes to his Hyper Festival, its effect on the scene remains unmatched. It's where modern American rave culture was born. But also, if you want to know what's hot at the moment, just visit an EDC. With an unlimited number of options and music styles, the experience could easily compete with some of the most famous clubs on the planet. And if you're lucky, you might still be able to see some hints of Plur here and there. Yet in a world where tickets have become too expensive and many clubs and festivals are considering closing for good, it feels like the Electric Daisy lives in another reality. Burning Man just failed to sell out in over a decade, while Coachella is seeing a 15% drop in attendance. But for Insomniac's 30th anniversary, it only flew above and beyond. While being voted as the second best electronic music festival in the world, it also broke records by hosting 525,000 people over one single weekend. After all this time, with so much noise around the globe, neither EDC nor Pasquale show any signs of stopping. Perhaps the actual golden years are still ahead of us.
Everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and I learned from those things, and it made me stronger.
Yeah.
And you can just never give up. And the fans in this scene and in this culture are the best fans in the world. The only way you'll get through it all is if you're that passionate.
Right.
You have to love it that much.
Just like EDC, there's another iconic event that's changing the game completely. With its unique sound and powerful visuals, it's disrupting the entire raving experience, becoming a heated topic among many of its attendees. If you want to dig into the story of Afterlife, click here. And one last thing, thanks a ton for watching all the way through. It means a lot. Alright, thanks y'all. Peace out.